Located halfway between Athens and Greensboro, Georgia on the Oconee River, is our next stop in our series of 8 abandoned places in the state of Georgia. After the Spanish troops settled in the area in the 1700s, they built a frontier settlement and village. The village expanded with a paper mill and water-powered grist mill. But devastating fires destroyed much of the buildings, leaving behind abandoned ruins worthy of explorations. Welcome to the Scull Shoals Mill ruins. In April of 1540, the first non-native visitor to this area of Georgia came in the form of Hernando de Soto. Even though he only stayed a couple of days, he and his troops and their horses and war dogs and bears all consumed up most of the local Indians' food supply. They only stayed a couple of days and then headed east towards the Georgia coast and towards South Carolina coast. When they left diseases that the local population didn't have immune systems to handle. They had never come in contact with those diseases before. Population started to thin out. It wasn't until 1782 that this area became a settlement for the new visitors. And in 1782 is when the village of Scull Shoals was established. Welcome to Keeping History on Two Wheels, and this is another version of the 8 abandoned locations in the state of Georgia. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, please hit the subscribe button. It's right over here. Don't forget to hit the bell so that you'll be notified whenever we do an upload, and we do one each and every week. In 1782, the village of Scull Shoals was established, and after several attacks by the Creek Indians, in 1793, Fort Clark was established, and it was here to protect the local villagers. After the Treaty of 1803 was signed, the Creek Indians moved further west, leaving the Ogeechee River area for the whites and their slaves to open up. They grew a lot of crops, and after Eli Whitney's invention of the cotton gin came to fruition, they started planting a lot of cotton, and more settlements came to flourish. Here at Scull Shoals, they had blacksmiths, they had grist mill, they even had a cotton gin. Scull Shoals Village began as a frontier settlement in 1782, and in 1793, after several Indian raids, residents erected Fort Clark. It served to protect the settlers from raids across the river by the Creek Indians to the west. Fort Clark was manned by a local militia called Finney's Dragoons, until the Creeks were moved west towards the Ocmulgee River by the treaties of 1802 and 1805, which led to the village's expansion. With funds from the Georgia legislature, Zachariah Sims and George Pascal built Georgia's first paper mill at Scull Shoals in 1811. Though details are scarce, It is probable that the original mill was an addition to the water-powered grist mill already in place. The Sims and Pascal plans were to expand that mill dramatically with a $3,000 loan from the Georgia legislature. The paper mill lasted until about 1815. The operators went bankrupt shortly after the War of 1812. The property changed hands, but the village continued to expand. Though this is not the first cotton mill, this shows what the Scull Shoals Mill looked like in brick under its third owner, Dr. Thomas Poulan. There were flourishing mills, boarding houses, stores, a large warehouse and store combination, a distillery, a toll bridge, and other enterprises. As the enterprise expanded, more than 600 people were employed to make yarns and cloth. Always a company town, Scull Shoals suffered economic problems after the Civil War and changed hands several times. For a short period, 1877 through 78, it was even home to the Georgia's infamous Penitentiary Company No. 3, which operated the cotton fields and mills with convict labor. And once again, it soon passed through other ownership. Dr. Lindsay Durham lived across the river in what was at first Clark County, then Oconee County. He was an early Scull Shoals community leader and medical specialist trained in early life by the Indian cures. He attended medical school in Philadelphia and then returned to Georgia to practice. Dr. Durham had a 13-acre herb garden and developed patent medicines that he and his medical family, particularly his sons, used to treat their patients. Durham's 600-bed hospital were in cabins scattered around his home near present Georgia Highway 15. It was a major facility for the time, and his family became a dominant medical dynasty, extending even to this day. Scull Shoals Village was even home to Governor Peter Early, who served in office from 1813 to 1815. Early was born nearby and was buried at Scull Shoals Village for a while. He died in 1817 at the age of 45. From the mid-century on, there were droughts and devastating floods. These resulted in work stoppages caused by either the lack of water for power or too much water. In 1887, a major flood left water standing for 4 days in the buildings. The covered toll bridge floated downstream. Several hundred bales of cotton were in the mill, and 600 bushels of wheat were in the warehouse. They were all ruined, bringing economic chaos to Scull Shoals Mill, from which it never recovered. A 100 years of open-field cotton farming caused erosion that removed 8 to 9 inches of topsoil from the fields. It was deposited in the rivers and covered the shoals. This in turn caused more frequent flooding, which continues to the present day. Heavy siltation cut the head of water needed to power the mills, often stopping mill work. By 1900, most people had left for regular work elsewhere, and the mills closed for good. During the World Wars, machinery was scrapped for the war efforts, and most of the brick buildings were dismantled and salvaged for other projects. Today, only 3 walls of the brick warehouse and store remain, along with the arched brick bridge that took workers across the raceway into the mills. Stone foundations of the old mill's power plant and scattered stone and brick chimney bases can be found in the downtown village area and out in the surrounding woods. Remains of the wooden-covered bridge stand in the Oconee River.
I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell so that you'll get notified whenever we do an upload. Leave a comment, and don't forget to share. Always remember, every trip starts with a step, and that step, well, it starts with you.